Very good. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well. James Osborne here from the Recruitment Network. I'm over in, I was going to say sunny Cork, but it's not sunny. It's very windy because we've got this Agnes thing that's just passed through us sort of thing. So fingers crossed I can catch my flight home later on today. Today's LinkedIn Live. We're talking about branding, marketing and sales and how the three of those things have some form of relationship and fit together. Probably three of my favorite subjects. We're going to be looking at a whole bunch of different things, and in particular about how recruitment industry leaders are building and mapping out their branding and their marketing strategies right now and what they're doing to, I suppose, utilize their brand to help them generate more money in their business. A simple way of doing it. So I like branding, I like marketing, I like sales, as many of you know. I wouldn't say necessarily I am an expert at it, but I do seem to be reasonably okay at it somehow, so I don't quite know what it is. So we thought for this particular LinkedIn Live, it's better to get an actual expert in rather than me talking about it. So we've invited along Sam Rasdal, who's a hugely experienced, talented brand and digital strategist, MD of Bold Identities, one of the TRN Gold partners. And for those of you who don't know Bold and what they do, they create ROI-driven recruitment branding and websites. And I think that's a really important part of it about this return on investment piece, because I think you can spend a lot of time and money and resource on marketing and branding, but actually, are you getting a return on investment? Can you see that return on investment? I think it's a critical question. So, Sam, first and foremost, thank you for joining us today. How are you? You well?
Very well, thank you. In equally sunny Leeds, my greenhouse has survived the storm last night, so we'll see if it's still there when we get home this afternoon. But other than that, all good, mate. A very, very kind introduction there, so thank you.
Pleasure. I didn't even mention the Crocs. Oh, I did just mention the Crocs. There we go. Sorry, apologies about that. But there we go.
You're only jealous, James. You know you're only jealous.
So, since Sam, I know you've put together a bit of a sort of presentation to walk us through. So why don't we just go straight into that, and we'll see if, as we go. By the way, anyone listening live, if you've got any questions at all, as always, feel free to drop them into the chat on the live section here, and we'll get those questions over to Sam as we go. But Sam, why don't I hand it over to you first and foremost, and you can walk us through your sort of thoughts around sales, marketing, branding, and everything else that goes with that.
Great. Yeah, let's dive into it. Let's get those slides up and we'll fly through. As James has mentioned there, anybody, if you want to stop me at any point, just interrupt, dive in with any questions. We'll stop and go from there. We'll fly through this, really some time for some good Q&A afterwards as well. So first thing I always want to look at is what is brand, because it can get a little bit confused with lots of different definitions. And really there's three kind of core elements of brand or branding. So company brand, your personal brand, your employer brand. To give it some very quick definitions, we would define your company brand as people's perception of your business. Employer brand is people's perception of what it's like to work for your business. And then your personal brand is obviously people's perception of you. Naturally, when we're talking about your personal brand, it's whichever parts you decide to put forward of you. For example, I have a very dark black sense of humor. That doesn't make too much onto my my LinkedIn post, for example, because it probably wouldn't go down too well. So it's whichever kind of size you show to yourself. And it's the same for all other kinds of branding as well. Within a company branding, for example, you're obviously going to present the perception that you want to be perceived on the market as and shape it in that way. And that's where the art of branding comes in. It's understanding your target audiences, understanding your position, and then creating a brand that's reverse engineered in order to tackle their problems, their frustrations, their pain points, and be the best on the market to do so. First impressions are something that cannot be overstated in terms of their importance here. So 95% of decisions are made in the unconscious mind. That was by a Harvard professor. I haven't got his name, but I'll dig out his TED talk if I can. I've got a master's in psychology, and a lot of what we do in branding is heavily weighted in psychology, as it is in marketing, as it is in sales. I often like to use the analogy of anchoring. So anybody that's had a good negotiation and somebody's thrown a low anchor in there will know what I'm talking about. If something costs 10 grand and someone comes with a low anchor of 5 grand, you're suddenly having a negotiation in quite a wide spectrum. You're probably going to end up somewhere in the middle. If you say it's 10 grand and they come at 8 grand, you've obviously got a much shorter window there to negotiate in. It's the same with first impressions. So if someone's first impression is one that's really bad, i.e. there's a low anchor on there, in your ability to try and get their impressions over time up the other end of the scale is that bit more difficult. Conversely, if somebody has a really good first impression of you, their decision on whether they want to buy from you is largely going to be made off that first impression. For example, if you join a meeting and someone's 5 minutes late, they join the call on a Zoom and they're in their pajamas on the bed, propped up with a pillow, you're probably immediately thinking, I'm not likely to spend thousands of pounds with this person, even if what they say is great, even if they give the best call you've ever had. You're already going to have a preconceived conception of what they're going to be like from that first impression. It's the same with everything that you do with your brand as well. And we like to talk about the KLT touchpoint scale, or the know, like, and trust touchpoint scale, because everything to do with branding is essentially trying to nudge people up towards these scales until they're in a position to buy. So the no is fairly obvious. If people don't know you, they're never going to be able to buy from you. People are never going to dial roulette your number in on their phone and happen to get you on the phone and then say, oh, actually, I need a software engineer. Fantastic. I'm glad you're a recruiter. It's never going to happen. So you've got to be known. You've got to get yourself out there. You've got to get your brand out there in marketing and social media, getting on the phone, all the other areas that people are very well versed in. You've got to be known on the market before anyone will consider working with you. You then got like and trust. If people don't trust you, they're almost certainly never going to work with you and part with their cash to put it in your back pocket. Obviously, within recruitment, trust is a big issue in terms of the industry's tarred with a fairly negative brush in this regard, unfairly, in my opinion, from working with so many recruiters and being a recruiter myself. But you have to almost go overboard within recruitment to show that you are trustworthy and show that you are one of those companies or one of those people that do things right and are not one of the cowboys out there that are maybe just after a quick buck. So getting that trust is really important in order to get people to part with their cash. The like bit's the interesting bit. People don't have to like you to spend money with you, but boy, it does help. If you've got somebody that knows you, that trusts what you can do, your service, the outcomes, all the rest of it, and they really like you, they're really warm to you, you're in a position where you're pretty confident you're going to do a sell. And all of this can be done with branding before you're even getting onto a call to speak to them, before you've even pitched your service. And that's where branding and sales can often intertwine, is that branding can do the job of a salesperson before that client, that prospect, has spoken to a salesperson.
And Sam, can I just quickly ask you on that one? So can you measure this stuff? I know you created a scale here, which is sort of figuratively, but can you actually measure like the social selling index on LinkedIn, for example? Is that a bit of an assessment of how much people do know, like, trust you?
I think that's a great assessment. I think the other thing I'd always look at is this is every touch point. So this isn't a case of, okay, I've sent a great email, added loads of value to him, they must like and trust me. If you then have a call with them and you say something that is maybe not giving off that impression, you're going down the scale a bit. So it's a constantly moving kind of, piece, if you like. But we would always drill home that every touch point, you're going to try and knock them up. And if some touch points, you might knock them down a bit, make sure that on the next few touch points, whether that's a call, an email, some marketing, a LinkedIn post, a LinkedIn message, whatever it might be, always bear it in mind. And the like bit isn't essential. So people don't have to like you to work with you. I don't like EasyJet. I'll fly with them if I have to. The difference is if Jet2, maybe biased because I'm in Leeds, if they're flying to the same destination on the same day, I'll probably pay 10, 15% more to go with them because I've got a good experience of them. I know them, I like them, I trust them. Do you know what? If they're not flying and EasyJet are, I don't really like them, but I know them. I trust that they'll get me there safely. Maybe not my bags, but I trust they'll get me there safely. So I'll at least still fly with them. So that like bit isn't as important, but it does make that selling a whole lot easier when it comes to branding. In terms of things to consider for first impressions, we could probably do a whole presentation on this in itself, but obviously your digital touch points are things like your website, your social media, your website design, what's the usability like for those user journeys. Obviously within recruitment, you've got clients, candidates, potentially consultants looking to come to your business as well. So making sure you're catered for all of those user journeys, your social media presence, the experience candidates have, whether that's engaging with a recruiter, applying for a job, what's that like? The testimonials and case studies that you have out there are obviously going to really help shape that perception people have, the positive as much as the negative, the digital advertising, and then responsiveness. So a lot of the time we try and get leads in, whether that's through chatbots, emails, LinkedIn. How quick are you to respond to those? If somebody has got a lead on your desk and you don't respond for 24 hours, it probably doesn't give the best impression of how eager you are to work with that person. I think that's something that can often be forgotten when the focus is quite often on generating the leads rather than actually then what do we do with them once we get them. The next thing I'm going to talk about is consistency, and anybody that's worked with me or worked with Bold will already be rolling their eyes because it's a term that I bang on about far too much, but again, I can't stress how important it is. Consistency within brand is absolutely vital because if you have inconsistencies, people don't quite know what they're going to get. I would always, again, it's that psychology head of mine, I'd always look at a brand as a person. What are their traits? What are their values? What are their characteristics? How do they dress? How do they try and appeal to the people that they want to attract? And once you start thinking of a brand in that way and you relate it to a person, you can see how consistency is so important. Let's say you had a friend, for example, or a colleague, somebody that you know that 1 week they might be the most laid back, chilled out person in the world. The next week they're super stressed, really like on everything and all over the place. And the next week there's something else. Very quickly, you're probably not going to know what you're going to get from that person and probably distance yourself a little bit because you don't know, where you stand with them. It's the same with a brand. If you have various different elements and different faces that your brand is showing to a large extent, people don't know what kind of brand you are and how to interact with you. And there's some examples on there that are the ones that really stand out. So often we see between, for example, a social media and a website, the personas are very different. For example, if someone has a really corporate, professional, formal language on their website, but then on LinkedIn, all the posts are around nights out, around celebrating the dog in the office that's, the CEO or whatever it is. It's very different. Like who do we really engage with? And this is true on a personal level, from personal branding as well. So I'm sure everybody that's on this will be able to think of someone that is a bit of a keyboard warrior on LinkedIn, is very opinionated, comments on lots of things, stimulates discussions, if we want to put it politely. And then you speak to them on the phone and it's, if they're different person on LinkedIn to what they are when you speak to them, again, it's going to create that massive inconsistency and you don't know who you're dealing with. Some of the other key ones that I'll just fly through there are between your verbal and visual identity. So let's say there's a social care recruitment company, something like that, working in the care sector. A lot of their verbal language is going to be around how they care about the people working in care and empathy and things like that. If we then got to a visual aspect and they had a bold Gothic font and bright neon colors all over the place, it's not a congruent brand. It's two kind of separate brands that you're taking out to the market. So making sure the two of those speak to each other and compatible with each other between stakeholders, and then often the case, or sometimes can be the case, between marketing and everybody else, and marketing trying to get the ideas and the understanding of branding and consistency through, and other people kind of doing their own thing and giving different impressions to the market with what they're doing. I think that's a crucial one, and that needs to come from the top rather than from marketing. And I think too often it's a marketeer or a marketing team trying to impart this knowledge and wisdom that in the long term is going to massively benefit sales and growth, but it's not so much the quick wins, and so sometimes it can be overlooked.
Sam, I want to touch on this consistency piece, because this is a question I really wanted to ask you about today. When I look at my personal brand strategies across different platforms, so LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram, etc., I have a different objective, different style across each one. So I use LinkedIn for a different reason than I use Insta or Facebook or X or that sort of stuff. Is that okay? So is that because I use, for example, my Facebook is my personal profile, who I really am as a person. My Instagram is where I blend my personal and my work together, and LinkedIn is my work. And I try and keep those three very separate, and I do that on purpose. But they are quite different. I mean, what you see me do on the weekend on Instagram is probably quite different from maybe what you see me do during the working day. Is that okay? Because that is me in reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes back. First of all, I think everyone's going to be checking out your Facebook now to see the real James. So be frank. I think it comes back to what I mentioned at the beginning. There's elements of your personality, like what you do over a weekend, that probably aren't relevant for LinkedIn. As long as they're still you and it's still genuine to you, that's absolutely fine. I think the trouble comes in is when you're painting a picture of somebody that you're not on a particular platform because that serves a purpose. That's where you're going to become unstuck, because eventually someone's going to converse with you on the phone, meet you in person, see you at an event, something like that, and realize that person that you tried to create is not you at all, and suddenly all that trust is broken. Go back to that KLT scale. They might know and like you, but if they don't trust you at all because they don't know if what you've been saying is true or not, obviously you're going to fall to the first hurdle. But yeah, absolutely, you're going to have different nuances between the different platforms that people are using, for sure. I won't go through this just because I'm conscious of time, but these are kind of the building blocks of the brand process we would talk about, and making sure that there's consistency through all of those. But for me, and I think James mentioned it right at the beginning there, branding is not or it can be seen as a bit of a fluffy topic, if you like, a bit of a vanity metric, something to make yourself look good and feel good. Yes, to an extent it can be. For us, it's a commercial process. It's all about money. If you've not got an objective in terms of how you're making your money back on it, then what's the point in going through the process? So let's start with what is money. For us, we would say money is just an asset used for the transfer or the exchange of perceived value. And you're probably sitting there thinking, fuck you on about, Sam, this is to do with branding, right? Let's get back to branding. So let's talk about how money can influence the brand then. So if we're agreed that money in itself is something that people use to exchange for value, and that your brand is people's perception of your business, then what we need to focus on is the perceived value scale. Because by definition, if people perceive our brand as one that offers lots of value, we can then dictate what kind of price, the money, that we can put on our services. So if the market out there sees your company as someone that's offering lots of value, loads of value-added stuff, all the extras, all the bells and whistles, can get the results that they need on time, fantastic testimonials, you're in a position there where you can dictate what you're charging. That 25% fee is suddenly very easy to back up. Whereas if you don't have a solid brand that you can fall back on, or you don't have a brand that is perceived to add lots of value, you're back into a rat race to the bottom, and ultimately it all comes down to price. And that asset, the money that someone's willing to exchange to get your services, just gets drastically lower, and suddenly you're fighting over the 10 to 15% deals that nobody really wants to be fighting for. So when it comes down to money, it's understanding that in order to charge more, make more money, you need to be able to demonstrate that you're a brand that can add a lot of value to your clients and your candidates. This is something that I appreciate is probably a little bit small to read there in terms of how brand, marketing, sales all fit together, but I'll give you my opinion on this then. So sales and marketing should just be one unified team, in my opinion. They both do such similar jobs, particularly these days as a recruiter. If you look at some of the things around the outside there, you've got things like workshops, email marketing, social media, social proof, all the various different elements that are going around the outside there that in some companies would sit with recruitment, with the actual consultants. In some companies would sit with the marketing team. And in lots of companies, it's probably a bit of both. Your marketing team should be setting everything up for your sales team to close stuff. So your marketing team should be understanding and learning from your sales team, what are the challenges that our audiences are facing? What are the pain points? What are the frustrations out there? What are we doing that's alleviating them? And then the job of marketing is to then get that information out there. So it's understanding the target audience, understanding their pain problems, which your salespeople are going to hear day in, day out. The two teams, or the one team, if you like, having that unified understanding to then create content that is reverse engineered directly to those pain points and frustrations of your customers. You then look in terms of where does brand fit into all of this? Well, all the stuff around the outside there, podcasts, social proof, social media, email marketing, PPC, SEO, all the rest of it. I'm sure most companies are doing a lot of that. If you're doing a lot of that, but you don't have a solid brand or a brand strategy behind that, ultimately it's going to fall down because you're directing it back to something that doesn't have a strategy, and it comes down even further than that. So the center of the diagram there, you've got business strategy. Understand your business, understand your market, your positioning, build that out into brand strategy, understand how you then communicate that to the market through messaging, amplify that with your visual identity, then take it to market with your website, and then you're ready to go and do all the fantastic work that marketeers can do in terms of attracting people to get their time and attention and convert them on your website or on your social channels. So in terms of how do they all fit together, for me, we should stop seeing sales and marketing as two separate teams. There's so much overlap, particularly within recruitment, and they should be working to tee each other up. I always think marketing should be your best salesperson. Your salespeople are there to close deals because your marketing team have done such a good job at setting them up, selling all the benefits, identifying their pain points, that you're just there to close the deal, basically.
With that in mind, Sam, do you think a salesperson in recruitment or a consultant should ever make a cold call?
Ironically, yes, because it's an avenue that most people don't do anymore. I can't tell you, I don't think I've received a cold call, maybe one cold call this year, maybe two. I don't know how many emails I delete every single day that are trying to sell me something. So in answer to the point you're trying to make, no, they shouldn't have to, because marketing team are doing a good enough job, but they should have a load of warm stuff to always go at. In terms of should salespeople make a cold call, I think suddenly, again, it's kind of gone full circle, and people actually appreciate a sales call now because they don't get them very often. So, yes and no in answer to your question there, James.
Probably more, is it? To make this really clear to everyone listening, I think we should be on the phones a hell of a lot more than ever before now.
Absolutely.
So I totally agree with that. I've just finished a roundtable discussion here all about how to generate meetings, and how we should be doing a hell of a lot more meetings than we're doing at the moment. But in theory, if your marketing and your branding part of your business is aligned properly to your sales structure, in theory, yes, we should be making lots of calls, but those calls should never really be cold. They should always be warm, I'd imagine.
They should always be warm. There should be a link there. There should be some kind of hook that you can speak to, or at least gather their interest in some form. What we would always look to recommend and do is make sure that your marketing team are generating a list of hand raisers. So your marketing team have understood from the sales team what the common issues, problems, pain points are on the market, produced a guide, a blog, a webinar, a workshop, something that tackles that, and getting that information in front of those target audiences. That's where the crucial bit comes, because then you're getting in front of them. Even something as simple as, hey, we understand this is a problem in your market. We've got a solution by way of a guide. Let me know if you'd like a copy. Anybody that responds and asks for a copy, that's a list there straight away to pitch, because you know that they identify with that pain point because they've asked for a solution on it. So no, it's a semi-cold call because they maybe have not, geared up ready to speak about recruitment, but you know that there's a reason there that they've got in touch. The list of hand raises is what we'd always look to try and create from the value add that you're putting out there. Last thing I'll talk about then is the power of testimonials. Now, I think testimonials, everybody's aware, testimonials, recommendations, case studies, they're all really important. Other people's words carry a lot more weight than what you can say or what your company can say about you or what you say about your company. For example, if you have a lovely dress, a new haircut, some new trainers, some new Crocs, James, anything like that you've got and you're showing off. If your mum, your partner, your daughter, your friend, if one of them says something really nice, I like your haircut, it means something. If somebody completely random who has no ulterior motive compliments you on that, you're going to take that to heart a little bit more because they had no reason to go out of their way to say that. It's the same with testimonials. You're going to say the best things about your company, as are your employees, as are the close kind of allies that you have out there on the market. The people that go out of their way, your customers that have no benefit from giving you a glowing testimonial, those kind of words are the words that are going to resonate with your target audience. We'd recommend you go one step further than that, because your testimonials can be much more than just hey, look how great we are. They can be a real good BD tool, which again, as we just talked about briefly in terms of cold calling, there's a lot of work in BD at the moment. A lot of industries have maybe had a bit of a hit this year and people are having to go back into that harder BD mode. This is a great avenue to go down that most people don't. So how do we make it into a sales tool? Well, it's really simple, really. It's understanding what information do we want to be able to put out there, and then controlling that, dictating the information that you get out there by asking the right questions. So here's just 6 killer questions that we would always recommend you ask on a testimonial. If you can go one step better, get someone on a video, record a 5-minute video of them saying this. Suddenly you've got that content you can snip up. You can put it on your website, snip it up in terms of lots of different 30-second chunks for your socials. But things like, who are, yourself as a company, who are we and what do we do? They are then going to describe your company in their words and probably identify your niche. So other people can listen to them and go, oh, I do that. I'm also in their target audience. You ask them to explain what challenges they face before working with you. They're probably going to describe a lot of the challenges that all the rest of your target audience are feeling. So a lot of those people that aren't your customers can resonate with that. Same with hesitations. If you've got somebody that's looking at this testimonial thinking, oh, okay, I'm in the same industry, I have those challenges. You then get them to talk about their hesitations of working with you, bearing in mind, that these are going to be overcome because you've done a good job and they're doing a testimonial for you. They're basically telling all your target audience, this is why I was tempted not to go ahead with these people. You then punctuate that with the initial reaction and what was the outcome of the service. And they're doing your selling for you. So you've got one of your customers that can resonate with another one of your ideal target customers, saying what their problem was, why they were hesitant to go ahead with you, why they were so overcome with joy when they finished working with you because you've solved all their problems. And then you get that sent out to all your target audience. That is them doing a cold, hard sell for you. All you've done is facilitated it. And second to that, all the hard work you've done when you have been recruiting for that client and doing all the good work doesn't just come back to I worked with James, he was really personable, I got on well and he filled my job. That's great, but it can be so much more in terms of utilizing this hard work to get more work off the back of it, which, like I said at the beginning, everything we do with branding and with marketing it's not about looking good, a vanity metric. It's not about how much likes can we get on a post. It's about earning more business and earning more money and winning more business that way. That's pretty much everything from me in terms of slides, but here for next 10 minutes or so to answer any questions at all.
Fantastic, and thanks so much, Dan. That's a really nice, simple snapshot. Really, really good. We've had a couple of questions come through. Please, again, anyone else, if you've got any other questions, ping them through, and I'll share back a couple that have come through on my emails over here. The one thing I just will say, the word you keep utilizing a lot, which I really, really like, is this value piece. You talk a lot about sort of demonstrating value, talking about value and stuff. I think it's such an important thing in our industry to get people away from thinking about there's a cost to utilize a recruiter. It's an investment to use a recruiter, and if you're getting value, you're getting a return on investment from that, which I think is great. So I just wanted to stress that because I know that you talk about that quite a bit.
Well, just before you dive into that next, James, I think on that, a couple of years ago, a salary survey is probably enough value that you can stand out from the crowd. So giving something like that. Nowadays, you have to be a lot more creative, or you have to do a little bit more work to demonstrate that value, because particularly with things like GPT, creating guides, documents, things like that is 10 a penny. Anybody can do that. What they can't do is steal your knowledge, your experience, everything that you've learned. So whether that's an audit, can you put a hiring audit on for a target client? Hello, Mr. and Mrs. X, I know you may not be hiring right now. Can I do an audit of your hiring process? Give you some pointers and tips. So next time you are hiring with me or somebody else, you've got a better process. They're going to fall off the chair because there's a recruiter offering to help them and not trying to sell to them. Can you do a workshop? Within your industry, can you get an industry heavyweight on to do a chat like this for half an hour that everyone in your industry is interested in? I think when it comes to that value add piece, a lot of recruiters fall in the trap of talking about recruitment. 95% of the people that you're trying to work with don't care about recruitment 95% of the time. It's only when they're hiring they care about recruitment. So stop trying to give them value on recruitment, because most of the time it's not valuable to them.
100%. So a couple of sort of quick questions for you to throw back at you and see if you can give us some quick answers on these. testimonials or data? So we talk a lot about having testimonials written. Well, there's two questions actually. Testimonials, written testimonials or video testimonials better, first and foremost? And then also looking at data, is it better to have a whole load of actual factual data that backs up our story over a testimonial?
Cool. So in terms of video versus written, both if you can. There's a lot of tools out there that can transcribe a testimonial. So I would always recommend you have it video, so you've got that visual element to use on your website, snip up for your social media. You've also then got something like Otter AI is a great example that then will send you a transcribed version of that afterwards that you can then snip up and use the words, because you will need the words for things like SEO to pick up and for putting them in places where video is not appropriate. So I would always say if you can get both, great. In terms of having testimonials to back up what you do or data, I would always say that data is great, and data is the cornerstone of most decisions that are made these days within businesses. You can't beat somebody else that you can relate to saying how good that person was. I think that is the strongest sell you can often get. For example, if we were to recommend one of our partners, we know that that person often ends up having a good conversation with that partner because they come recommended. Whereas if they just found that partner off the back of something, they may not have that first impression. Come back to the beginning of the slides, that first impression of a really good one. So for me, I think the power of testimonials and case studies is huge.
Okay, brilliant. Second question, and this thing that always fascinates me. When we talk about branding and recruitment, obviously you've got the company brand and you've got personal branding. It generally feels to me, based on what I see, is that personal branding or personal profiles get a lot more traction than a company brand and company thing. Is that because people buy more into people? Is it because it's a human thing? Is it because, I don't know, why is it? Why is it that if I wrote a post and put it on my blog, I would get 2 million views? If we put it on the company one, we might get 3 views.
Yeah. I hope you get more than 3. I'll give you a couple more if you need some, James. I think in terms of in terms of that question then, so number one, the algorithms of within things like LinkedIn favor personal posts. You've touched on a couple of points there. People buy from people. So if they see a post from a person, even if it's not a sales post, they can engage with that. If they see a post that's not a sales post from a company page, it's very obvious that obviously the company is posting to try and win business, whereas it's a little bit more smoke and mirrors, if you like, from a personal page. And that, yes, everyone's aware that the long game here is to win business from that, but it's more of a personal connection. I can identify with someone that's got a picture and a face and a personality, and this is where injecting personality traits, characteristics into your brand and into your company brand help get more of that engagement from your company brand rather than just relying on your personal brands. I'd also say the interaction between company brands and personal brands is important, particularly if you take LinkedIn, for example. If you post something from your company brand, get a couple of people to either reshare it, put their own spin on it from the company, or comment on it, and vice versa from your personal brand when you're doing some posts. Get your company brand to engage with some of the good posts on there, because people might not always put you and the company together. They might know you as a person, but not know you work for Company X. So get Company X to engage with, the top performing posts or people that are fairly active on LinkedIn, so the two become synonymous together.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, brilliant. And this is probably going to be my last question, actually, which is a classic. I know we've got some marketeers and some marketing managers on this session listening in today. The last question that's come through is how does a marketeer or marketing manager contribute directly to the bottom line of a business?
Yeah, that's $1 million question there. Well, again, we could spend an hour on. I think for me, making sure that you're aligned with the sales team. I think too much of the time, marketing, not always through the fault of their own, sometimes through the fault of their own, can be seen as a separate entity. The people that sit at the side that do a bit of everything. I think getting, first of all, clarity on what a marketing function is, because there's lots of different elements to marketing. Does the company want somebody that's going to manage socials and do more of that side of stuff, or is the company looking for a marketing function that is more proactive with the outbound email marketing and the strategies that are helping win more business? For me, the best way to make sure that marketing is aligned with contributing to the bottom line is align them with the sales team. Marketing should be sat next to the sales team. They should be listening to all those conversations. And similarly, the sales team should be tasked on sourcing certain information that the marketing team want. So pretty much everything in my book comes down to communication, and problems arise when there's either a miscommunication or a lack of communication. The answer to that question lies in communication again. The communication between the sales and the marketing team needs to be so back and forth that they both understand their customers inside out, they understand the pain points inside out, and they can confidently describe and sell the solutions that you offer inside out. If you've got that synergy between the sales and marketing team, it suddenly doesn't become a decision of who brought that in. It's a case of, isn't that team thriving and doing well?
Fantastic. Brilliant. We can chat all day about this. There's so many facets to this, so many ideas and so many different things that we should be looking at with marketing. Really enjoying the time as always, Sam, and let's make sure we get some more of these. And I know you're coming to some of our sessions, etc. If people want to reach out to Sam, I would suggest having a good conversation with him. He's a great guy. He's got a lot of insight, a lot of experience. Not only he's been in the recruitment sector as well as doing what he does now. So you can see it from both sides of the fence. Have a look at his website, boldidentities.com, and reach out to Sam directly. But Sam, really appreciate your time today. So thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it, James. Yeah, if anyone wants to chat, just drop me a message and we'll get something set up.
Fantastic. Absolutely appreciate that. Those of you listening live, say thanks for joining us. As always, we run these every week on different subjects, different sessions and different things. Reach out to us. If you want to find out more about the Recruitment Network, go to therecruitmentnetwork.com or reach out to me directly. Other than that, have a fantastic rest of the day and we'll catch up very soon. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.